What's going on, guys? What's going on, Chai Squad? What's going on, everybody? What's going on? So, the OKC Thunder are one game away from winning their first NBA championship. From winning their first NBA championship. And I am going to say this. They won this game 120 to 109. And this was just a dominant performance by OKC. And now the Pacers are on the break of elimination. And if the Pacers lose this game, we could say that 40 points from a 40-point game from Jalen Williams. A 40-point game from Williams was the factor. And we all know that Halliburton went down last night with that calf injury. And that calf injury that Halliburton is dealing with right now, it kind of reminds me of Kevin Durant's injury in the 2019 finals when they went against the Toronto Raptors. And that is what this finals reminds, that is what Halliburton's injury reminds me of, is when KD got hurt. And I know some are going to say, well, Halliburton isn't a superstar. In my opinion, he is a superstar. And when a superstar goes down like that, nobody likes to see that. Nobody likes to see anybody get hurt. Nobody likes to see that. Like, when Halliburton went down, I think some of his teammates were kind of down to see him go down like that. He did go back to the locker room, and we have to give the Pacers a lot of credit. Because now you're going to play Thursday night. You're going to play Game 6 Thursday night. And the thing is about this is that you're on the brink of elimination here. And we can say Williams' 40-point game. We weren't expecting for that to happen. But when you get dominated, and when you get dominated by OKC, a team that had the best record all year long, that has the MVP, we seen this OKC team play good defense against the Minnesota Timberwolves, against the Denver Nuggets. This OKC's team, isn't going to back down. They just aren't. At a point in the moment, when you think that everything is going right for the Indiana Pacers, they're still a comeback team. And we saw that last night. We saw how Indiana made a comeback. We saw that. We saw how Indiana doesn't want to back down. How Indiana won't back down. Both of these teams won't back down. Both of these teams play at a certain pace. Both of these teams play at a certain pace where, in a point, you want to see something like that. You want to see a game like this where both teams play with a pace. Indiana plays with more of a fast pace. Because if Indiana plays with more of a fast pace than OKC, because what OKC did last night is that they matched OKC's, they matched the Pacers pace. They weren't going to let the Pacers just win a game like this. And we can get all of that. We can say that the Pacers here only won 2 games, and now it's 3-2. If the OKC wins game 6 Thursday, we're looking at this as OKC had the best record 2 years in a row, has the best defense, and I know I said this before, is that this has to do with the Paul George trade that got OKC Shea, that got Indiana to let Indiana get Halliburton, Siakam, Naismith, Thompson. This series has to do for the Paul George trade. And I think Paul George deserves a ring, whoever wins this game. Even though Paul George isn't on both teams, I do think he still deserves a ring here. But when you say that a team like OKC or the Pacers aren't going to back down, like if the Pacers win game 6 at home, this is going to a game 7. If only the Pacers win at home. If the Pacers win at home, just think what that would do for the Pacers. The Pacers get to go back home now, get to be in front of their home fans. And I think when you're in front of your home crowd, when you're in front of your home fans, that makes a difference. Because we've seen it when OKC was in front of their home fans. We've seen it when different teams were in the finals. And we're seeing it now. This team doesn't, both of these teams, when they're in front of their home crowd and when they're at home, this team plays a difference. Like, they're not backing down. They're possibly going to get easy money buckets, Jam City dunks, because we've seen that the entire series. We've seen that the entire game. And how are we going to see that now? Because with the Pacers, it's like you're on an elimination. You're in an elimination game where this is a must-win game now. This isn't game one where you get to where you have more games. It's the first to four. And if OKC wins Thursday, Shea might get MVP. I can say that if OKC wins Thursday, Shea is going to get MVP. And then everybody is going to be talking about how you let OKC win. How did the Pacers let OKC win? And I'm going to say this. I know some are going to look at Rick Carlisle and say, why would he play Halliburton in the second half when he was dealing with that calf injury? And they went to TJ McCollum and Nimhart. I am going to say this. I do think the Pacers, this is just my opinion, I do think the Pacers should go to a small ball lineup. You should go to a small ball lineup. Or you should run free point guards. Like, put Halliburton, put Nimhart in the game, put Nimhart, and then put TJ McCollum. Because if you have free point guards, if you run free point guards, Halliburton, TJ McCollum, and Nimhart, and then you have probably Naismith and Siakam, that is probably a small lineup, and I don't think OKC couldn't match that lineup, because what OKC did last night is they matched the Pacers lineup in the game. OKC did not the Pacers couldn't figure out a way to figure out how to get how to match up with OKC. The OKC Thunder, I think, watch film from the OKC from Game 5, in my opinion, and said, let's match up with the Pacers. Let's play at the same pace as the Pacers. Let's play in the same rhythm as the Pacers. Let's play good defense. And that is what OKC did all game long. Is they matched up with the Pacers. They played the same way. They played a different pace than the Pacers. Because the one thing that I really like about the Pacers is that they remind me of the San Antonio Spurs, and how when they had Tim Duncan, they had Tony Parker, they had Ginobili, and and they shared the basketball. That is one team that the Pacers remind me of. Is those first team with Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Tony Parker. Because those first teams were very interesting to watch and very fun to watch them play basketball. And I do think that the Pacers play the same way. But what but what but what OKC did is that they went back and changed the pace. They went back and changed their pace. They went back and matched up. And now that you're on a elimination game here, and you're going into game 6 after losing game 5 to OKC for the Pacers, I don't think there's nothing that that the Pacers can do except play good basketball, except play their rhythm. Because if you're able to go with a small lineup, like I said, of running free point guards, in my opinion, like Halliburton, TJ McCollum, Nimhart, and Naismith, and Siakam, and go small like that, I don't think OKC has nobody that can go small like that. I don't think that if we looked at it and said the Pacers go with that kind of lineup, then that's a whole different story. That's a whole different story. And I'll get into the box scores in a second. But that's a whole different story. If you go small, like we've seen teams in the finals, in different finals, go small or make a lineup change. That is something that I would do if I'm the Pacers. And if I want to win my first championship and I'm the Pacers and I want to win my first championship, I would definitely go small. I would definitely play small ball. Because going small to your guys, like Siakam playing the 5, like Naismith probably playing the 4, like Miles Turner coming off the bench. If Indiana goes small like that, you could easily win a championship. But that's only if Indiana goes small there. Because if you go small, you could honestly win the game. Honestly. If you play small ball, you could honestly win the game. But that is something that the Pacers aren't doing. They're not going small. They are matching up with OKC, but if you go small, then that's a whole different story. But OKC won the second quarter, 32-22. They beat Indiana in the first quarter, 32-22. They beat Indiana in the second quarter, 27-23. They beat Indiana. Indiana beat OKC in the third quarter, 34-28. And OKC beat Indiana in the fourth quarter only by 3 points, 33-30. And the score was 120-109. At a point in the game, it was tied 82-82. In a point in a memory of time, it was tied 82-82 with 5 minutes to go. And we know how Indiana wants to make comebacks. We know how Indiana likes to make comebacks. And we honestly know that Indiana isn't going to back down. That is something that Indiana isn't going to do. And like when you have Siakam scoring 28 and 5 for the Pacers, when you have Naismith scoring 14 and 6, when you have McElroy, who scored 27 in game 4, only scored 7. Halliburton only scored 4 points in 6 and 7. As long as Halliburton attributes in a game, that is okay to me. Because Halliburton doesn't have to put up 17. Halliburton doesn't have to put up 20. Halliburton doesn't have to put up 30. Halliburton is playing his style of his game and Rick Carline's style of the game, of the game plan. And Rick Carline's game plan. Because when you're able to actually play your style of your game and you play your coach's game and you listen to your coach's game plan at the same time, like Halliburton was dealing with a calf injury. We can't forget that Halliburton was dealing with a calf injury. Halliburton has to I hope Halliburton is able to play Game 6. Because when Halliburton went down, it wasn't good to see. It wasn't good to see Halliburton go down like that. Because Halliburton is a superstar. And I am going to say this. It's that when you have a superstar, when you have a superstar, Halliburton is a superstar. You don't want one of your main guys, or you don't want a superstar to go down like that. Because with Halliburton, it's more like he's Indiana's main guy. And so is Siakam at this point. Because when you have Thomas Bryant coming in for 2 minutes, the Pacers just really didn't have enough. When we look at the OKC side of things, you have Jalen Williams. You have Williams scoring 44 and 6. You have Shea scoring 31, 10 assists, 2 rebounds. You have Alex Caruso putting in 2 points. Wiggins putting in 14. Wallace putting in 11 for OKC. Like, there's nothing that OKC can do. Like, this game was not what we were expected it to be. Because when you have Indiana shooting the ball from the field for 37% from the field, when you have OKC shooting the ball 40% from the field, when you have Indiana scoring 45% from the field to the Thunder's 42. Like 11 shots from 3 for Indiana to OKC's 14. OKC's went 26 times to the field goal range to shoot free throws, and 24 times for the Pacers. They won the rebound battle. OKC had more assists than the Pacers. OKC had more blocks than the Pacers. More steals than the Pacers. OKC, there isn't enough that we can say about OKC. There just isn't. But if OKC ends it Thursday, we're looking at a champion in OKC. But I hope it goes to 7. But guys, sub if you're new and never give up your dreams. And I hope all of you guys are safe out there. And stay blessed, everybody. And peace.